Hello, darling. This is my first time on YouTube, hence all the Take a shot every time I say so, or in terms of. I am nervous. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. Oh, okay, a few seconds in and we are swearing. Just so you know, I am a swear-heavy reader. There will be swears. I personally do not believe that that inhibits my ability to communicate effectively or articulately, and certainly doesn't inhibit my ability to channel information that is appropriate for the time. If you differ on that, that's absolutely fine, and I know it turns some people off, and you are free to please move on without much conflict. Yeah. I'm not going to go into that anymore because I will do like a bio video at some point, which will be also a major disclaimer video. So, this reading is what you have as your point, focus, locus of control, where you can take control and where you possibly should surrender or relinquish control. The reason I wanted to do that at this time of the year is because this is the time of the year where everybody makes resolutions, everybody gets resolution hangover, everybody starts to hate themselves because they didn't go to the gym as many times as they said. And I can think of nothing worse, don't know about you. So I don't want anybody to feel out of control, spiraling, hateful to themselves, blah, blah, blah. I also want an excuse for people to let go of stuff, because sometimes I think it's kind of not until somebody tells you, you know, you don't have to have complete control of this situation, or you know you couldn't control that if you tried, so there's no point crying and worrying over it and blah, blah, blah. It's not until someone can give you that information sometimes that I think you can actually let go of it and just move on and fully harness the things that are fully harnessable, that you can kind of claim as your own and that you can affect. There is a useful analogy in the modern Jason Segel Muppet movie, not the most recent one, the other one, where Animal is trying to stop himself from drumming. Arguably, I would say that drumming is Animal's mission in the universe. I would say that when Animal is drumming, the universe is super fucking happy with him, and that he's living his purpose. So when he's not drumming and he's trying to control the fact that he wants to drum all the time, he wants to drum, and he's telling himself to stay in control, he's kind of saying in control, and he's looking into the distance with those wild eyes that you only get when you're lying to yourself. You know, they're really crazy, not just crazy eyes, but really crazy eyes. And yeah, it's because he's repressing his nature. And that's the other thing about control, is that if you're going against the flow, even if you are very well organised and doing all the quote-unquote societal right things, not that anybody knows except you what the right thing is, really, honestly. And when you're hearing me, you're only hearing yourself because you're hearing the interpretation of me that you have, which is, you know, in itself a filter. I digress. I'm sorry. Yeah, when you're listening too much to other people's definition of what you should control, or you're having perfectly adequate control over the things that everybody says you should, right? Sometimes you don't realise that there are areas of that don't need to be within your fucking spectrum of influence, and that you don't need to try quite as hard, because there are areas where naturally you will make the most change, and there are areas where naturally you will struggle against a tide that, through no fault of yours, is just tidally not for that thing right now. I've completely lost my tangent already, and we're 3 minutes in. That's good progress, no? Huh? I deal a lot with shadow aspects in this particular pick a card. I suspect that I will everywhere, to be honest, because I like radical emotional and physical self-responsibility. But if you feel like you don't want one that's going to talk about that thing, you know, the thing that you don't want to talk about, maybe skip it. Or maybe if there are comments, and I hope there are comments, and I hope there are views, but if there are, then just have a look and gauge whether you want to hear this. Because I'm not one of those like, you will meet tall, dark and handsome and you will be super successful because you are wonderful and joyous and blah. Truth. If you like what you hear, or if you don't like what you hear but you suspect it's kind of right and you kind of needed telling, please do the right thing, and share as well with your friends. I am also available for private stuff on Fiverr, and there will be more info about that kind of as that relaunches, because I've had a patch of not really doing that stuff. So yeah, I hope that it is useful for you. If it is, good. I don't know why I said that. This is so all over the place. I'm really sorry. I'm anticipating like 50 cuts on this intro video just because I am so nervous. My hands are shaking. Yeah, enjoy. Hello again. So, pile 1, your standard smith-waite / rider-waite deck. Pile 2, the Aquarian Tarot. Pile 3, the Vertigo Tarot. And these are kind of supplementary, these little guys at the side. These are the archetype cards. And then in terms of helpers, we have Chunky Boy blasting out his purple rays of doom. We have Nego Blaster, who will get rid of any kind of shadowiness around control issues. And we have Chalky Neon, who I normally use to draw sigils and circles and things, but she's also great at drawing a goddamn line in the sand, so she will be with us also. In terms of crystals for piles, if you prefer to pick by those, we've got a lapis, a citrine on here, we've got a carnelian and a smoky quartz here, we've got this beautifully camouflaged tiger's eye and hematite here, small and mighty this guy. And if you want to name those, please do, and let me know. Okay, right. I'll give you a moment. I'm going to center myself and then we'll get started with pile 1. Okay, pile 1. I'm going to move these out of the way. Yes, this is egg-shaped. It is not what you think. These can rest by Chunky Boy. And let's have a good shuffle. So how it's going to work today, just giving you a preview of that deck, is that I'm going to look at 4 areas of your life, but I'm also going to look at you as a kind of signifier thing. And I'm going to do that with both the tarot in terms of what you can control and what you need to sacrifice the need to control, or what you need to surrender. Oh, hello, I've got a jumper already.
Let's not do that. So you'll get kind of an overview from... I've got to level with you guys. I'm extremely nervous. I've done plenty of in-person readings over my short lifespan, but never for such a big group of people. And never live. Live, anything could happen. It's like goddamn Ghost Watch. Hopefully not, actually. You're pleased to know that Parkinson is not involved. Jesus Christ. You can tell I'm nervous, I'm just fucking rambling. Right.
I tend to pick by sight, they get glowy, and touch, they get kind of like I've got, what's it called, popping candy in my mouth, but then I've put my hand in my mouth, my whole hand.
My whole hand! Okay, you need to know that, I'm so sorry. Right, let's have a go at pile 1. What you can control overall. What you need to surrender overall. Right. Oh, this guy's jumping out. In body. Sorry, I went just not around to myself while I'm doing this, but it does help, I promise you. I'm so sorry. Right, we are good. Does anybody else want to come out? I feel like this. Let's wait to do sectional ones. I don't know whether I'm going to do sectional ones.
I can't tell whether you can tell, but my process is very fluid. I kind of make up the layout of the readings as I go along, but it's served me well so far, so let's see. Okay, overall, in terms of what you can control, we've got the Six of Pentacles. In terms of what needs to be surrendered, we've got the Empress in reverse. In terms of archetype, we've got the Victim in shadow because it came up reversed. In terms of your mental outlook, the control is in Ace of Wands. The surrender is in Ace of Cups. In terms of your body, finances and materiality, the control is in the King of Swords. And the surrender, interesting, is in the Two of Wands. In terms of your creative and spiritual life, as well as your social stuff, control is the Six of Swords reversed. Surrender is the Star. And in terms of emotional life, the World reversed and the Two of Swords. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna move this out of the way for a second. I'm just gonna also warn you about my reading style, because if I say something critical or if I peg you as a particular archetype that you're not happy with, i.e. this, it's not meant as an insult or an attack on character. It's purely the vibe that you're displaying for the moment, and it's entirely changeable. And in the spirit of the reading, you can control kind of what happens next with that. It's meant to reflect an aspect of personality and not your entire persona, but the aspect is what will relate to everything else you have here. And immediately what I'm seeing going on with all of this is that you're giving a lot, maybe too much, and not necessarily for the reasons that you've been thinking you are, or other people think you are. So we've got someone who can control their generosity, their charitability towards other people. Is charitability a word? I don't know. Right now it doesn't matter. You've got somebody who, in terms of their emotional life, restricts themselves from feeling fully, from indulging in all the ideas in all the different areas that they could be doing, and also stops themselves from experiencing unity. This is the card of unity, and I don't just mean that in terms of relationship unity or unity with self. I mean it in the bigger sense. Like, whatever is going on here is to an extent blocking your ability to indulge your spiritual life in a way that would be correct for you. And I use the word indulge very intentionally because there is a problem here with indulgence. Okay, so I'm going to go control first, then I'm going to do surrender. I can't remember whether I just said that. So you can control to what extent you give to others. Emotionally, you can control how much you restrict yourself from your emotional life in the world, from expressing your emotions in the world, from giving of your kind of true self versus the self that you feel is appropriate to sort out and heal everybody else, right? That will become crucial when we get to here. In terms of your physical life, you can give a kind of articulate practicality. It's not so much helping people out in terms of moving and physical stuff. It's more that you can counsel anyone, you can talk to anybody, and you can help them to cut through the shit and get to clarity pretty fast, right? This has always been something you're naturally very good at. I don't know whether you are an air sign, but it's always been something that comes fairly easily, and therefore it's an area you feel in control, fairly happy with. But what we're going to look at later is how you could kind of use it without lapsing into shadow. In terms of your actual inner mental life, not so much how you express your mental state, but what you're thinking about, what you're doing, you can control your creativity. And at the moment you are feeling very creative, and that's quite an abundant area for you, so that's great. Maybe you're taking in a lot of ideas, maybe you're exploring this kind of possible world restriction by looking at things through the ideas of others, watching a lot of movies, listening to a lot of new music, stuff like that. That's going well. That you can always control. There will be a but. And then sort of finally in your spiritual life and your sort of sociality and stuff, you can control whether or not you leave situations that you see as toxic, but that is hindered somewhat. It's in reverse. There's a suggestion here that you can control your relationships, but you don't know when to leave. Okay, in terms of the things in each area that you need to surrender, and I hope this is resonating, and if it's not, just let it go. It might be for someone else, or I don't know. In terms of surrendering stuff, because of this kind of giving nature, and because you are defined by how you counsel others, how you share creative incoming stuff with others, or express your creativity in a very mental, very intellectual, logical way, by how you set limits, and by how you kind of restrict your own emotional life and embrace a kind of stoicism in order to keep everybody else even. That's led to a blockage in your own indulgence, in your own enjoyment of all the things that you're telling everybody else that they can be enjoying. I hope that makes kind of sense to you. So you're advising people to live their life and to roll over in all this beautiful, wonderful stuff that's out there in the world, right? But then you're going home and you're not allowing yourself adequate time to also enjoy those things. I'm not reading burnout, but I'm reading a kind of, this stoicism here is to the extent that you can't just let rip and sit down, put your feet up and just enjoy something completely selfish. And actually, I suspect from this that block isn't coming from selflessness as such. I don't doubt that you're a compassionate person, right? But I don't think that that's where this is. I think that this is a people-pleasing thing that is actually relatively negative for you at the moment. And the reason that I think that is that this needs to be surrendered. And this has been calling out to me. This is the healing card, right? But it's in the area of kind of spirituality, and maybe you counsel others, maybe you're defined to a large extent by stuff you do for others in the spiritual community or church or something like that, right? Even if it's just that you're completely atheist, which is all fine and groovy, but you are kind of the person that everybody leans on for their good advice. Your ability to heal others is fantastic. It's a real gift, and it meshes in with this creativity and intellectual aspect. But at the moment, it needs to be released. Because it's turning into this, the victim. And the victim in shadow says, playing the victim for positive feedback in the form of pity, inability to maintain personal boundaries. Now, I don't think you are doing the Seven of Swords type thing where you're having a pity party. I don't think that's you. I think even when you give good advice, you're not necessarily using your own experience to colour it in a way that invites pity or sympathy or whatever. You're more stoic than that. You're more level-headed than that. And you have, certainly from this, a certain level of kind of radical emotional self-responsibility and honesty. So I don't think it's that. I think it's the personal boundaries bit. I think you're so keen on fixing everybody, you haven't actually looked at, not whether you need to be fixed, because you're quite a stable character, but certainly whether you need to just have some fun and let rip a bit. Okay. In your emotional life, part of this stoicism that you've had going on is a kind of, it's the skill that you learn in meditation, where you're kind of watching thoughts flow and acknowledging them as they come up and then seeing them flow down the river, and you're kind of letting them go. And by the process of acknowledgement, your logical brain is satisfied, so you can kind of let go and go into the other aspect, which is the more kind of diving deep, subconscious, where everything is fine and groovy territory, you know. Your ability to label emotions in a similar way to that kind of labeling of thoughts that one would do in meditation has led to a process whereby if you feel anything, you're categorizing it, you're cutting it up, you're doing the swordsy, very articulate, very logical thing with it, kind of before you've had chance to process it. And the thing that I'm finding interesting about this is that she's got all of this water behind her. So there's this emotional depth here that is kind of being ignored by the fact that she's carrying the swords. And the swords, you know, potentially, this is usually a card about choice, but to me these two sort of prongs suggest that you're carrying more than one very heavy emotion at a time, but labeling them has been mistaken for processing them. And actually what you're not acknowledging is this well of shit behind you that just needs to be felt, that just needs to be indulged, that just needs to be experienced. Which brings us kind of round the circle up into here. So this bit is about physicality as well. It's very much like the active participant. It's your business life, it's your physical life, it's the person who goes jogging in the morning, that kind of stuff, right? This guy is looking at the globe and imagining kind of where he's going to go off to. These rods are creative energy, so it's very much like potentiality and taking things further. Again, this emotional labeling and not indecision, but separation and holding everything back so as to seem responsible for everybody else is stopping you from looking at what you could be doing in a very real, very physical, very practical sense. I'm getting maybe travel, but certainly travel in the sense of, you know, voyaging off locally just to explore what is out there and what makes you you. I think you've been taking care of everybody so long, you've forgotten what it is that you needed to just have for yourself to keep the motor running, to recharge the batteries, to keep it so that you can be this kind of wonderful friend, creative person, role model, you know, general all-round rad dude. Okay, so then surrendering in the creative bit, interestingly, is the pinnacle of either romance or emotion. It's literally the holy grail. And for you, that's even more true, I think, because what's coming across from all of this is that if you were to let go and indulge yourself just for a second and maybe explore what possibilities are open to you, exclusive of everybody else, this kind of well would start to pour out of all this stuff that's potentially been repressed and potentially isn't doing you any good. I'm getting that day to day, you're very high functioning, you're doing well, but something needs to be kind of, the tap needs to be turned on with this stuff in order for you to get the most out of everything, right? So the surrender that needs to happen, I think, in this area is that you let go of the mental stuff, which is this bit, in order to let all these emotions come out. I'm wondering whether, like one of my former clients, you've potentially had a leaky problem, pipes bursting, plumbing problems in your house, plumbing problems in your body, just kind of things overflowing. Maybe even like local flooding. I know that's happening a lot, so, you know, take what you will, but I feel like this is your dam trying to burst, right? And you won't let it because you are so logical and because you have it so together, and it's almost like a great emotional risk for you to admit that, yeah, sometimes I get sad, or sometimes I get angry, or even sometimes I get really horny or joyful and buoyant and just, all these things need letting loose too. We think of like unblocking emotions as letting this tide of misery come forth. That's not necessarily true for you. You might have some victim stuff going on. You might be suffering and might need to let go of some of that that's coming across in all this kind of unofficial healing work you're doing. But I also get the sense that what might need to burst through for you is also joy. Okay. I'm going to look at this kind of how you're healing and helping everybody else. And because I've got this clarifier guy waiting for me, I'm going to ask what you can replace this sacrificial energy with so that you're not violating your boundaries. Interestingly, both of your crystals are kind of about communication, self-esteem, assertiveness, the extent to which you can express your inner self in order to bring light to others. And I do think that that's what you're doing. But this one is about kind of sight, psychic sight, foresight, and this is about joy, this guy. So all of that is all well and good, but you need to be looking forward, and you need to be looking forward for you and with some optimism there. Okay. The help you've been giving to other people, funnily enough, is about moving them on, moving them forward, letting them see the bright future for themselves. But you haven't done that for you yet. So overall, to summarise, because I do ramble on, you can control the extent to which you give to others. You can control your boundaries. You can control whether or not you leave relationships in your life that do have a bit of toxicity, and whether you take yourself out of situations that are wonderful in some ways, but not serving you in others, and maybe blocking you and keeping you in the same place. This is, in reverse, this is the card of being stuck in the same situation. Dude, do not do that. You do not want that kind of stagnancy, believe me, I know. You can control the extent to which you kind of limit your interaction in the world, but that's not necessarily a healthy control. You can control how you speak and how you advise others, and you can control your creative input. What needs to be surrendered from you, and this is a real state of emergency, guys, is blocking your own sense of indulgence and joy and luxury and sensuality in the world, stopping yourself from just touching and feeling and doing and all this lovely empressy, like Taurian vibe stuff. Also surrendering this need to categorize emotions rather than feel them. Maybe take the blindfold off here, put the swords down, turn around and actually look at what you're feeling and just accept it as is. Surrendering kind of inhibition of dreaming about what's next in a very practical way and just going and doing it. You don't need to fucking plan it anymore, dude. You really don't. Just do it. Surrendering, swapping out your emotions for logic, which is kind of a mirror of this bit down here. I love it when they do that. And surrendering your need to heal everybody and show everybody else what they're capable of, when actually you're potentially the strongest person in your life. I'm getting that you support family members. I'm getting that you have always been a bit of a healer type, but not in a woo-woo way, in a very practical, like role model way. And that's great. You have this fantastic potential, but it's almost like you've been doing it so long that it's just slipped into inhibition. So don't do that. I hope that that was in any way useful. And if it was, please like, please subscribe. Please look for me on Fiverr. I'm kind of launching again on there in a couple of days. And yeah, I hope you got a lot out of this. And I hope that you can break the dam, just feel and enjoy, really enjoy it. Be indulgent, be the mother to yourself that this card kind of implies. And I mean in a great mother sense, you know, in the goddessy kind of vibe sense. Buy the sexy cushions, touch them, eat the nice foods, enjoy the good movies. Okay? Just do it. You can do it. Alright. Thank you, Pile 1. Hello there, Pile 2. Let's get cracking. I'm going to pop these guys with the other help crystals just by Chunky Boy. And I'm going to give these a shuffle. So how this is going to work is I'm going to look at kind of 4 sectors of your life. And I'm going to look at an overall kind of view of you. And with all of those things, I'm going to... Sorry, talking and shuffling is a real problem for me. I do apologise. With all those things, I'm going to pick a card for the aspects that you are fully in control of and can feel very safe with and competent with. And then a card for the aspects that maybe have left you a little bit stumped or that you need to get rid of or surrender, where you need to relinquish control. I'm also going to pick an archetype card for you out of one of the, maybe this pile I'm thinking. And that will be kind of a signifier archetype for the central bit of the reading. It will make sense as we go on, I promise you. And as I said with group 1, apologies in advance if I seem really chattery and nervous, because I've done plenty of in-person readings, but I've never done pick a card for this wide an audience before. And I've never submitted to YouTube. So, yeah, there's that. Okay. I do this by sight and touch. If the card is right, I'll get a crackling like I've got popping candy in my mouth and I've put my entire hand in my mouth. So just bear with me a minute so I can get some crackle going.
And you are control. Sorry, I said let's carry on because my friend gave me words. A warning. Data limit warning. So, that's always great, isn't it?
Okay, so here is your archetype. So I'm going to turn them over and explain kind of what's what. Archetype wise, we have the visionary. Look at you go. I'm going to just pop it down there. In terms of control, for the signifier for you, we have the Ace of Cups in reversed. Oh dear. In terms of your mental outlook, we have the Nine of Swords. In terms of your spiritual life and creative and social life, we have the Queen of Cups in reverse. Oh, darling. I'm so sorry already. In terms of emotions, we've got the Six of Pentacles, which actually came up for the last group, so that's cool. And in terms of physical stuff, so money, business, and the body, you are in control of the King of Cups. There's a lot of cups going on here. In terms of surrender, overall, we've got Queen of Swords in reverse. Mentally, we've got Justice in reverse. Physically, we've got the Three of Swords in reverse. Interesting. Emotionally, we've got the world reverse, which again came up last time in a different place. And in terms of groovy fire stuff, oh, tower reverse. Okay, let's go. Right. Hey, okay, sorry about the cut there. I feel like we were a little bit jangled. If there's a slight alteration in sound, that is also why. But I managed to chuck everything across here. This is a tricky one, so I'm just going to run with it, and you let me know what feels right and what doesn't. I get the sense that this is about your relational life, right? Okay, let's start with the archetypes, because this is going to be a tricky one to get across without seeming a little dodgy myself, right? So the visionary, which was in the light for you. So you've got a great capacity to envision what is not yet conceivable to others, a willingness to proclaim a vision without regard for personal gain. So you've got excellent foresight in what I feel is potentially a relationship reading, or certainly a reading about how emotionally giving you can be. This is because we've got a lot of kind of cupsy energy, but we've also got a lot of swordsy, intellectual. There's a lot of similarity actually between you and pile 1. So if it's useful, do go back and watch that as well, and kind of take in some of the stuff that they're going through, because I do feel it's a similar dynamic, but for you its arena is in a different bit of life. For pile 1, the things that were happening were kind of in the sense of them helping out or not helping out others and drawing sufficient boundaries. For you guys, I'm getting that this is actually about hookups, or kind of how emotionally available you make yourself to others. So if that sounds like somewhere that you don't want to know where you've got control and where you haven't, or if some potential criticism in that arena is gonna trigger you in some way or be a bit uncomfortable, by all means tap out now, because this ain't gonna be I try and read with compassion, but I'm not going to mince my words, okay? So for your signifier, and for the area in which you have control, we've got the Ace of Cups reversed. So similar to pile 1, you've got a blocking of emotion here, but what I'm getting is that in restricting your emotional life, or your emotional, in stopping your feelings from coming across, say, what it's lapsing into is superficiality. And that is the kind of downfall of the Ace of Cups. When you block this holy grail of emotion and compassion and deep intuitive interaction between people, what you tend to get is surface connections, possibly sex without love, possibly friendships that are very based on trivial things. Maybe even a bit of materialism, but generally for cups it tends to be in the relationship arena. So I'm going to say that if it ain't like Tinder and shit, it's certainly that your ability to open up with new people is something that you are proud of placing some kind of restriction on. And you have your reasons, but we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll do control first, then we'll do surrender. So overall, what you're controlling is the flow of love, really. That's what it's about. And that's not to say that there's no love in your life and that you don't have some strong relationships, friendships, etc. And it's not to say that you're not a loving person, because there's actually a huge capacity for that going on here. But it's definitely an area in which you're relatively guarded. So let's go to the emotions first, right? So again, in the control section of the emotions, you can control, similar to pile 1, how much you give. This is the kind of generosity card. And normally it's kind of material generosity, but when it's in this particular placement, in this particular layout, what we're talking about is how much you can give to other people of yourself and of your truth. And you're very pleased that they don't always see your inner self and they can't always see your past, see your aspirations. You are quite proud that whereas the first pile had a kind of general stoicism about their emotional life, you have a mystery about you in your romantic life. There's a very Scorpionic vibe here. I don't know whether you are Scorpio or you have heavy or afflicted Scorpio, but there's certainly those kinds of behaviours. No shade on Scorpio. When we get to the meatier stuff, every sign has good things, bad things, and again, with Scorpio, there's this huge capacity for emotion because they're water, but there's also this kind of sexy and slightly sly energy going on. And I mean that in the sense of restricting the flow of things in a very calculated way. But calculated doesn't necessarily mean negative or evil. It's just a thing. It's just another thing, right? So emotionally, you can control how much you give. You're quite pleased with that. Physically, I don't want to make presumptions about your gender or sexual preference or anybody else's, and I don't want to make presumptions about your proclivities either, but I'm getting a bit of like daddy vibes in what you've been going for. Or at least a kind of you have control over a card which is traditionally a very loving, sacred masculine. Take that as it resonates. And I think that with this being in the physical sector and with me picking up on potential hookup energy, this might be that you go for guys who, or women with a masculine vibe, who are strong, protective, emotionally nurturing, but you feel like you've got control over them. And in any dynamic where you feel like you are controlling another person in order to get what you need out of it, that's not healthy for either of you. So actually having control over this, unless this is you and unless you are a kind of a person who embodies the divine fatherly energy, unless that's the case, your control over this is very shadowy indeed. Yeah. And it's potentially got a sexual aspect to it because it's in the realm of physical, financial. Maybe there's even like a sort of like a sugar daddy thing, and you've been relating and holding back emotionally in order to get some kind of physical compensation from the situation from this person. No judgment if so, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but again, for some of you, I'm getting that might be the vibe. Yeah, I'm going to move on. So mentally, control over the Nine of Swords is an interesting one because the Nine of Swords generally is quite an out of control card. It tends to mean things like sleepless nights. So the very basic interpretation that I've got for this is, whatever this situation is, you're not losing any sleep over it. It's not playing on your conscience, it's not keeping you up at night, and in general in your schedule you're more in control than you think, you have more power than you think, right? And with this being in the mental arena as well, it's like you've got this intellectual leverage here, and you are quite highly intellectual, and again that's a similarity with the first pile. Yeah, so that's good, that's positive. There are positive aspects in all of this. I'm not just slating you or judging you. Some of the stuff that I'm going to say is going to be difficult to hear, but I say it with love. And I do actually see a personality here that I would very much get on with, and that is very capable of both incredible self-expression in a very wordy way, and a kind of beautiful capacity for love. Okay, so in the realm of relations, spirit, creativity, fire energy, you've got a blockage in the Queen of Cups, or a reversed Queen of Cups, which generally is, again, it's this superficiality, but it's also kind of jealousy, manipulativeness. This is very much the Scorpio in shadow. This is the girl you don't want to take home to your parents. Not saying you're a girl, not saying that that applies to you, but certainly in the way that this whole situation has been affecting you, you are not your best self right now. And in a way, this ability to coerce in the situation is something you are semi-proud of. I don't think that's because you find those qualities particularly endearing, or because you seek to kind of force anything on others. I don't think that's in your character. I'm seeing a person who is actually quite kind. But I think it's because whatever control this enables you to get over this aspect is also stopping you from acknowledging some very difficult stuff that's going on with you. You're getting through a lot of this energy in order to hold back something else. But this visionary card tells me that you're capable of a lot more, and you're capable of inspiring a lot more. So, yeah, I'm going to go into surrender. Queen of Swords reversed is, frankly, elitism. Whatever has happened here, which we'll get to with this Three of Swords and this Justice reversed, I feel like you've been hurt, and because of that, you are potentially quite judgmental of what you enter into from there on in. Queen of Swords is also the highly intelligent, highly logical feminine energy who potentially uses her intelligence and ability to criticize, categorize, order, and organize on herself or themselves. It's the person who runs at their own sword. And that is something that needs to be let go of. It's fine kind of being able to control an overflow of emotion, and that is why you're kind of proud of this. But if you are so controlling and judgmental of others and yourself that you're thinking in terms of criticism rather than gratitude, and you're thinking in terms of separation, boundary holding, and categorization rather than connection, then you are not going to achieve happiness. And actually, the Queen of Swords upright with the Ace of Cups upright would be a wonderful balance, because it would be someone who can feel very deeply, but also who can remain logical and remain forthright is a word. This repression has led to you thinking that nobody is good enough, including yourself. Perhaps particularly including yourself, which might be where some of this stuff comes into shadow. You're kind of trying to please and manipulate people who are kind of symbols of maybe childhood approval. God, this is heavy shit. I'm really sorry. But you're going about it in a fairly judgmental way, and you're going about it in a way that rules out genuine connection, which might come in surprising ways, spontaneous ways, ways that are all the more wonderful because you didn't see them coming, okay? So, emotional surrender. This, again, is an aspect that came up in the first pile. You guys could be sisters, brothers, whatever. The world reversed is a need to surrender, holding back on unity, holding back on engagement with the world. I get the vibe that you probably are engaged with social media and you're quite proud of like the self you present on there, but it's very calculated, it's very edited. And what you're not doing is actually putting yourself out there into the world and experiencing the world truthfully back to you. Because nothing can be genuine with you, nothing can be honest with you and have that intimacy of interaction unless you actually show up fully with your whole self and not your edited, what you are seeing as your best self, which actually, I feel like I need to tell you that your idiosyncrasies are one of the most beautiful aspects of you and are something that will be vastly appreciated in any relationship you enter into, whether it's asexual and platonic or not. But you're not seeing this, you're actually kind of afraid of it. And what you need to release and surrender, as well as this judgmental attitude and elitism about others, is that you won't show a raw and vulnerable self, and you therefore are blocking your communication with everything that could be coming in for you, which, by the way, would be fantastic if it were to come in. I'm going to go to here. This is a really crucial one for me, because I feel like this is the reason that all of this behaviour is coming about. And when you see it upright, you're getting it now, aren't you? There's a situation, probably a romantic situation, that you're refusing to heal from. And it's very real, and it affected you in very physical ways, be that how you saw yourself physically, or be it a kind of financial abuse, or a change of where you lived, or something kind of very material happened for you that it made it difficult to get over, because it wasn't just an emotional trauma, it was something that had to be dealt with in a way that you weren't prepared for. And in a bigger way than just the emotions, which is hard enough. Like, if you had this in another sector and you were going through this and refusing to heal it, and believe me, this reversal position is like a refusal to engage with it in order to heal it. Again, mirroring pile one. But if you had this anywhere, it would be painful. The fact that you have it in something that is so physical and grounded and material tells me that it was such an all-encompassing experience that it's no wonder it's having this effect. And I really hope you got this far into the reading, because I know it's quite a difficult reading and I know it's been quite harsh, but I want you to know that I totally fucking understand where you're coming from on this, because anybody who had to shift their life and their perspective in such a holistic, negative way would be experiencing putting up some boundaries, putting up some walls, maybe being a bit judgy of who they entered into things with, and maybe kind of cutting off from their real self a bit, or having some self-esteem issues. You got smoky quartz as one of your crystals, and that's very much a kind of, again, it's very scorpionic, which fits with this, but it's a bit banishy, it's a bit cleansing, and I feel like there's a lot that needs clearing out of your past before you're going to be able to be yourself enough to sort out what's going on here. And when I say sort out, it may not even be that you're dissatisfied with what's going on in your romantic life. It may be that you're like, this is perfectly adequate and I'm absolutely fine, I'm losing no sleep over any of this. But you protest too much, to be honest. It's not legit. I feel like you have a vision of so much more, and you can have so much more, and it is out there, but you are really walled up by the fact that you won't process this stuff. And I understand it's awful. this brings me to, in the mental arena, justice reversed is about a sense of injustice. Your overall vibe is coming from a place where you're like, why should I be fair to other people? Because what happened to me wasn't fucking fair. And it wasn't in the natural order of things, and it wasn't something I can see justice in or justify in any way. I don't know whether maybe you were betrayed or whether it was just that the circumstances around this shit were so intense that it rendered it, untenable for both of you. But there's certainly a sense that you've brought forward with you, whether or not you acknowledge that you have, that life isn't fucking fair, so you shouldn't have to be. And that means you can edit yourself all the time, and that means you can be a bit elitist in your choices, and that means you can be controlling in your sexual relationships or in your dynamics with others, and that means you can potentially be a bit manipulative or a bit jealous, and so what? Because there's a lot worse out there, right? That's not you. It's understandable with where you've come from and what you've had to go through, but it's not actually your true nature. Your true nature is fucking beautiful, and it's not coming through. That's not to say that you're going to be immediately ready when you hear this and you're like, oh, it's about such and such and I need to just process this situation and then I can move forward and it's fine and whatever. I get the sense that this is so habitual, you may not even know how to move forward without editing and being slightly manipulative or slightly coercing, or perhaps the extent of this was a learned coercion, a learned emotional abuse, perhaps, and it's very difficult to move on from something that major with a sense of cynicism and injustice and maybe a bit of like an incel mentality of like, well, this isn't fucking fair, so I'm just going to be a douche now, and no. It's really, really hard to move on from that and have any kind of template for how to proceed. But what I'm not going to do is tell you how to live your life or what kind of relationships you should be having or what kind of things will work for you, because honestly, that's not something that's coming up here. It's not something for me to address or judge or talk about. What is coming up is that you have this capacity for vision and you can actually imagine it yourself. You can go, okay, what is the meeting place between how I'm behaving and interacting with everybody now and where I could be if I completely let go of all of this stuff and I let myself be totally fucking vulnerable. And you can kind of visualize that halfway house and use it to build up gratitude and appreciation and love within yourself for the things that already you do have, which, are beneficial and lovely and ticking away quite nicely without disturbing the peace too much. And you can kind of use your incredible foresight to heal it, not just by looking at the past, but by imagining where you're going to go. And doing it step by step, bit by bit. The kind of final surrendering is that blocked or reversed tower energy. The tower is cataclysmic transformation. It is very in keeping with this reverse Three of Swords. Shit went down. Your entire life had to change, whether that's just your mindset, but I'm sensing actually it was a lot more than that. But the change that should have come from that point of crisis, from the building exploding and all shit breaking loose, the change that was meant to come about hasn't exactly happened because you've not really let it. Again, it's this sense of repression. Like, you do not think of yourself as a repressed person, but you can be high functioning and sexy and appreciated by many people and still be holding something big back, and I feel like you are. Yeah, blocked tower energy is everything's come crashing down with the tower, but with the tower upright, it's allowed to heal into the Star, which is the next major arcana afterwards. It's allowed to progress into something that's really restorative. And with this, you've not allowed the progression. You've allowed, well, not allowed, but you've dealt well with the cataclysm, and you've gone into crisis mode and you've fixed it all up, and you've come out of it a kind of bigger, stronger, better person, which is all fine and groovy, and well done, by the way, because it was huge for you to do that. But what you've not done is then gone forward with the inner change that could have brought about. And that's, this whole reading is about blockage. Whereas with pile 1, there was a blockage of an emotional dam that needed to kind of burst forth, whether that be joy or otherwise. With you guys, it's a blockage of how you interrelate. This is a block in intimacy. So my overall take is, let yourself imagine, not even do, but just baby steps, imagine how it would be to be genuinely intimate with another person, in the sense that you're open, undisguised, non-judgmental, you're not coming from a place of insecurity or jealousy or manipulation, you're not having control over them, and you're also not kind of going into victim mode and thinking that the world is unjust and so what, I can act however I want. You're just connecting, because Ace of Cups is connection in the end. And you know, the card that is like notably absent from this reading is the Two of Cups, which is kind of true connection, true intimacy, true it's often taken as a soulmate-y thing, but it's not just that it's a soulmate aspect, it's that it's communion between individuals. And Queen of Cups as well, when it's upright, is about communion, to the point that it's literally about the sacrament of communion in some texts. But it's, you know, that you would benefit immensely from allowing yourself to be vulnerable with someone else. And I'm not saying in any way that any of the awful shit that's happened to you is because you've not been vulnerable. But certainly since that point, there's so many walls that you've put up that need to come down. And if they do, then you can go back into control of emotions, but it'll be controlling this beautiful flow into this other person's life. And vice versa, you know, it'll be controlling the fact that all this wonderful stuff's coming in for you, and you're feeling deeply how it is to be fucking appreciated fully as yourself, with all of your flaws, idiosyncrasies, you know, all these things that you think are really negative actually aren't. And it will allow you to, you know, keep the control, but with the Queen of Cups upright, so it'll be control of how wonderfully caring and nurturing you can be. It will be control of your generosity, which is in the upright already. You can be very, very generous. It's just you're using it in not the right ways. It will be control of your kind of fathering of yourself and looking after yourself in a very sacred, masculine, practical, emotionally wonderful way. And it'll be control of, you're not losing any sleep over everything, you feel intellectually kind of dominant, but there's this wonderful flow of energy that needs to happen. I rambled on for a long time, I'm very sorry. And I hope that wasn't a complete sucker punch for you. But I do think that there's, in the scant information that's coming up about current connections, there is a lot of potentiality there, but honestly, the most potential that I'm feeling is coming from you. And without focusing it on you, I kind of can't tell you a relationship outcome in terms of whoever you're currently involved with or looking at or dreaming about. But what I can tell you is that this stuff needs healing and sorting out, and that as soon as you do that, everything else is going to follow. Being seen and loved and experienced in the world, all those walls are going to come down. So I hope that was helpful. Love you lots. You can do it. Hello there, Pile 3. Vertigo Tarot. You have picked my favourite deck in the whole universe. I'm hoping actually that this deck is going to become more popular because it is all Dave McKean artwork. And they're about to do The Sandman for Netflix. So with any luck, there's going to be this wave of people going, oh my god, Dave McKean's the best fucking thing ever, that didn't know about him before. And that may mean that they reissue lots of Vertigo Tarot. Or that it just becomes more widely appreciated, because I just think it's so beautiful. And if you've chosen this, you are my secret favourite, because it's the best deck ever and I love reading with it. Okay, I'm being prompted to talk about your crystals before I shuffle, so you've got a kind of root strength here. You've got a good foundational energy. Whether it's that you've felt that your foundation has been relatively rocky recently, I don't know, but this is a good one to have. And this one is small but mighty. Like I've bought hematite rings before that if I'm not wearing the right crystals with them, or if my energy is not right, they've leapt off my fingers, and I mean leapt, and smashed in all kinds of places, you know, shops, public toilets, but it's always very dramatic. I feel like it's not that they don't gel with me, it's that I have to be kind of right for them, and that they are super powerful stones. So if small and mighty is resonating, you know, that's always good. Tiger's Eye. So courage, faith in your situation, faith in yourself is something that's been brought in here. Also, just how gorgeous is this stone? I really love it. It's not even my favourite type of crystal, but I just like this one a lot. Anyway, I'm getting carried away here. Just to sort of inform you as I shuffle, in the same way that I said to the others, this is my first time reading for a wider audience, if you like. I'm very used to doing one-on-one readings, not so much YouTube, so if I seem nervy and ramble on quite a bit, which I have done with the other two readings, please just take it as jitters, you know. Bear with me, is what I'm saying. I'm going to do a shuffle on camera so that you can just glimpse how bloody gorgeous. Look at that. Oh! I'm going to do another open shuffle. I don't normally do it that way. I normally do it in the other direction, but I feel like you just need to see the colours and the bloody detail of this deck. Also, the accompanying book is wonderful. And any deck that has my favourite card with my favourite comics character in it is like just rad as hell. So not that I'm trying to influence your reading, but if he comes up, I will be overjoyed because he's my little totem dude. Okay, I need to focus. Right. Okay, so the way this is going to work is there are 4 kind of sectors of your life that I'm going to look at. I'm also going to look at you as a signifier, and for each sector and for the signifier, I'm going to pick an area over which you have control and an area in which you need to relinquish control or surrender something. Be it an attitude, a person, a place, you know, it could be anything really. The other 2 readings have been emotionally heavy, so just warning you in case. I work by sight. Cards tend to glow for me. I also work by touch. I get a popping candy sensation on my fingers, so just bear with me a second while the popping happens. Right, I'm feeling very masculine right now, so I'm going to go for this pile here and just shuffle your archetype cards for you. Bear with me one moment because they're rather unwieldy. If I'm being completely honest, most of the reason that I separated the archetype cards into piles is because if I try and shuffle this entire deck, I tend to scatter it around the room like Gambit, just chucking cards at shit. Or a really ungraceful version of that, anyway. Okay. So, let's have a look at you and then I'll talk you through it. So your archetypal signifier, is the Prince. Romantic charm and potential for power. Okay, lovely. That's a nice energy to start with. You're a bit of a dude, aren't you? If you are a woman watching this, Prince, although it's a masculine term, it is just whatever you think of in terms of that energy. These cards are not gender specific. They're just, archetypes. They're mythological structure. You can be a prince and be a girl. That's fine. You do you. Your signifier is the Two of Pentacles reversed in terms of control over things. In terms of surrender, it is Judgment. In terms of mental control, we have the Seven of Swords reversed. In surrender, we have Two of Wands. Emotionally, you have control with the Page of Cups. That's very positive. Surrender is the Queen of Pentacles. Interesting. In terms of kind of spiritual and relational life and creativity as well, control with the Four of Wands reversed, surrender with the Knight of Wands reversed. Can we just point out another time how gorgeous these cards are? Ugh. And then in the realm of the physical, the financial, the business, the body, that kind of stuff, which will become clearer as we go. With control, you have the Lovers. Ooh, lovely. And with surrender, you have the Four of Cups. Okay. Cool. Sorry, bit of mic readjustment there. This is a much more kind of grounded and practical reading than the other two have been. It's a nice balance, actually. I'm really enjoying this. Like, the vibe that I'm getting off you is really lovely. So this princely thing, I feel like it is also about accomplishment in the world, and in the way that the prince was the kind of the trophy at the end of the fairy tale, not to be really negative, but he was the person at the end of the story, in the sort of revised tales, at least, the non-folkloric ones, that was a source of connection to everything, a resource for everybody else, a kind of end goal in terms of being very connected and very affluent or accomplished, as well as very romantic and imaginative and just all the things you'd want. And I'm getting that is, whether or not you feel that way about your current life, that is the vibe that you have. You are very able to adapt and use your resources well. I'd be really fascinated to look at your chart, actually, in terms of houses. But yeah, your resourcefulness is on point, and your emotional life is not in conflict with that whatsoever. Yeah, romantic charm and potential for power. I'm going to just pop him to one side. We may come back to him, but honestly, mostly the archetypal stuff I'm getting from that is you're more in control than you think. If you've come to this reading looking for control as opposed to where you should relinquish it, you have a handle on a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for at the moment. It's important to know when these things are the case. Okay, so your overall kind of signifiers, personality. Oh, I'm making my cards all sticky. I have clean hands, I promise you. It's just the card stock. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm really obsessed. So your overall vibe, Two of Pentacles reversed. Normally when this comes up in a reading, it's a relatively negative thing, because Two of Pentacles is juggling several things at once, and Two of Pentacles reversed is therefore kind of being unable to keep all the balls in the air, all the plates spinning at once. But actually what I'm getting from this, because it's in the placement for control and for your personality, is that you've maybe had a few plates spinning that were about to fall, and you've become extremely good at righting those and just returning to normality. And your gift for adaptation to very unpredictable situations is something that's quite crucial here and influences all different aspects of your life. And actually, this is the reading where business is coming in, play is coming in, emotional maturity is coming in, and it's all kind of intermeshing in a way that with the other two readings, they were very much about one thing, yeah? So you're very adaptive, adapting, and I'm going to take a page out of your book, and I'm going to read this slightly differently than I did with the others. With the others, I went through all the control cards and then I went through all the surrender cards. But with you, I feel like you've got such a handle on it that I can kind of intermingle the two. So I'm going to talk about this surrender with the main personality bit. So the bit you can control is you're extremely good at adapting to things and righting yourself where you've steered off course. This is an incredible quality in you. What you might need to kind of surrender is the need for that writing and correcting, course correcting, to become revelation, to become rebirth, to become some dramatic shift. It's like you're waiting for... It's like you're a movie character, right? And you're waiting for your main plot point to enter in all the time. But that's not how life works. And just this ability to adapt to chaos and steer yourself through it is kind of enough, and is kind of a good place to be in the present without needing revelation all the time. And the irony of it is as well that if you fully let go of the need to have your quote unquote breakthrough, that's when you're going to get it. And I feel like you're clinging tightly to this notion that at some point everything will just click into place, ignoring the fact that you have many gifts, you have many resources and many great things in your life that you've really got a handle on. And there doesn't need to be a big shift. There doesn't need to be a point of ultimate understanding where everything, crystallizes. So emotionally, we've got the Page of Cups. I'm getting that you're extremely imaginative, probably quite a romantic person. Certainly someone who's very emotionally forthright and has been accused of being not childish, but childlike with your emotions, or possibly naive. But, protect that emotional status at all costs, because it is healthy in you. It's not naivety. It's just a lack of jadedness and cynicism, and cynicism's a very unhealthy dynamic to have. So be glad that you have this wonderful imagination, this wonderful ability to daydream and plan and kind of get engrossed in the lushness of it all, emotionally speaking. The thing that needs to be surrendered emotionally is a Queen of Pentacles is very, very independent. She's very steady. She's got everything sorted out, and she's good at the emotional side because she's a queen energy, masculine or feminine, by the way, doesn't matter. But the Pentacles bit coming in is practicality. It's I will do this on my own because I can. It's sensuality and indulgence, but it's this very independent character. And actually, you've got so much to offer other people, not just romantically, but just emotionally in general, by having this wonderful, imaginative, playful, adaptive nature, that it would be a shame for you to seek independence emotionally wherever you go, and to not open up because you can do it on your own. Because actually in sharing a little bit more it's not that you're repressing sharing, as with both other readings, actually. It's more that you do share, but you just kind of don't feel the need to be emotional with other people because you've got that bit sorted. You're very steady. You're very resourceful and resilient. But what you're not seeing is that by being generous with those emotions, by giving to other people with them, you have so much you can bring to the world. Seriously. Just by talking about the stuff that you daydream about, you can restore hope in another person. You can be this like princely figure for them. And it doesn't have to be that they've got this Cinderella complex bullshit around it, or that you're saving them, or that you're even romantic with them. It's just that by nature of being who you are and thinking the way you think, you can make people really happy, and you can kind of enjoy that, the process of giving that. So emotions really aren't a big deal in this reading, to be honest. This is a kind of lesser aspect, but it's coming up so that I can tell you that, one, bloody lovely energy, well done you, and two, don't be afraid to both receive help and be a bit more open with your emotions, because you've got a lot to offer. Okay, so in the realm of practicality, finances, body, all the very material kind of stuff, I'm getting the sense that this is actually about business. Although the lovers have come up, and everyone, when they see that card, they go, oh, relationship. Because of what it's with and because of where it is, I think it's probably to do with opportunity and choice. I think at the moment, there's potentially like an entrepreneurial spirit with you, or at least a sense of like being a bit of a wild card at work and just going with it, and people being like, Jesus, I didn't know they could do that, you know? And I think at the moment, there's a crucial choice happening with this. There's a definite dual option. And that's something you do have control over, and you can make that choice in a very informed, balanced, even way. You've got this binary thing going on of like balancing out of the self and of decisions and of choices, and it's very level. You can be level-headed, but the surrendering part of this is kind of... Four of Cups is... you're quite introspective with the way that you think about this stuff, and actually the choice is much easier than that. I'm not saying to just go with your gut. I'm not saying to not think it through. I'm not saying to not feel it out as well, because Cups is emotion, so it could be that it's kind of emotional introspection and going over, well, how do I feel about this, and is it, you know, emotionally fulfilling, and it doesn't need to be as hard as you're making it. It's really like, it's just in your nature to know where to go with this, and you don't need to go over it and contemplate it. And there's a hidden opportunity, which is what Four of Cups is about. Generally, it's kind of in the smith-waite / rider-waite, it's the guy staring at the cups on the floor, not realizing that there's a cup being offered from heaven. So there's a kind of emotional opportunity being given by the universe, if you like, or by the world, that is not being seen and therefore not being acknowledged and utilized. With you, I feel like there's a bit of that energy, but it's more just that you're feeling and thinking too hard. You're going over it a lot. So don't, because it's simple. And you are more than capable of sorting it out. Like, you are a really capable personality. There's a lot of, I keep saying self-reliance, but there is a lot of self-reliance here, and adaptability, which is relatively unusual for, you wouldn't believe how many people. So, you know, this can be easy, so make it easy for yourself. Okay, that's what's coming over in that. Intellectually, Seven of Swords upright is about something that's been taken from you or stolen, or some kind of deceitfulness. So having control over it in reverse is it's similar to this Two of Pentacles in reverse. It's where you've lost out, you are very good at correcting the course and going back into gain. You're mentally, there has been something taken from you by your circumstances, or some kind of betrayal or treachery that's happened that has affected your outlook, but it's been very temporary. The area in which you have dominion here is like just going, you know what, I'm not going to think like that because of this one thing. I'm going to just right myself and I'm going to move on. And you have, and that's fucking brilliant. That's where your control is. All this is super positive, by the way. And then the area in which to relinquish or surrender is the Two of Wands. So, how do I say this? You've righted yourself. You've got past whatever this mishap was. You're very good at course correction. You've been doing it all your life. You don't need to focus so much on accomplishment. You're very, like, your aspirations are really high. You're seen as very capable by everyone around you. You dream a lot about what's next. But actually, you're kind of, the only thing that's holding you back mentally is that you need to accomplish the next thing all the time. You need to achieve. And that's not actually coming from this experience, because you're kind of over the fact that shit was lost. It's just, it's in you. I don't know whether maybe that's another astrological aspect, or, you know, it's just a personality trait that you are maybe a bit of an overachiever, or if not an overachiever, you're certainly focused on the next accomplishment to the point where you're hyper focused, and that's where this overthinking and over focus comes in. And you can release that. That's fine. Like, I can hear you going, well, it's easy for you to say, but you can, I promise you. Again, it's almost as if it's tying in with this judgment thing, because you're feeling like if you climb the next mountain, then you'll get to the top and you'll have the revelation that you need. And the falsehood here is that you don't need a revelation. You don't need to get to the top. It'd be lovely if you do achieve things, but you're actually not as it's not as necessary for you as you've been thinking. There is no urgency to any of this. You can just enjoy the moment, right? And you should. Especially because you have achieved a lot. Talking of enjoying the moment, if we move over into spiritual, creative and social arenas, you've got the Four of Wands in reverse for your area of control. The Four of Wands is party. It's, I guess there's maybe a bit of FOMO going on here, or a sense that there is a party going on and you weren't invited. Or maybe it's that you were the life of the party and that's been blocked because you have been achieving and overthinking and saying, no, I'll do it by myself in a lot of ways. And also course correcting, and that's demanding on someone's social life. But for whatever reason, there's a kind of change in the holiday and the party and your interaction with it. And I'm seeing that you can definitely be that person dancing on the tables at any given event. But for some reason that's restricted at the moment. And actually, because this is an area of control, I feel like that restriction is an awareness from you that you can go back to that anytime. You've got a bit of like, oh, should I be doing that? And then immediately these two cards kick in and you're like, no, I shouldn't. Fuck it. I'm doing the right thing. And you are. And the area to surrender in this is the Knight of Wands in reverse. So the Knight of Wands upright would be kind of rushing in headlong. It's the person dancing on the tables and maybe getting, too many martinis involved. But for it to be in reverse is a kind of blockage in that energy. So it's like holding back on how much of a party animal you are. This has been your area of control. You're not going to party because work needs to be done. You're not going to party because you need to sort out and achieve and course correct. The time that is applicable to you is ending. You can let loose a little bit now. It's odd because there's no like blatant achievement cards in this reading, but I feel like actually you've achieved a lot. And even if achievement for you has been just regaining a sense of normality after a few, I'm getting a series of kind of, not minor hiccups, but I'm getting a series of smaller things rather than a cataclysmic event. And you're just at the end of the process of dealing with them all individually. And dealing with them has meant that you've not been as involved and you've not been as kind of proudly Leo and out there and, haha, this is amazing, let's do all this. But you can go back now, you can do your partying, your cliff diving, your flirting outrageously with everyone present. That's quite all right and would be fantastic for your personality type because you've kind of got a handle on things. So I think it's like, if I was to sum up, which I should, because again, I'm rambling on, I'm so sorry. It's, you're good at course correction. You need to stop looking for a big revelation because your life is the big revelation. How much you've achieved step by step. If you step back and view that sort of as a whole, it's more than enough. And you're constantly doing it. You're constantly course correcting. You're making the right choices very intuitively without needing to overthink them. You're dreaming big. You're dreaming in a beautiful, loving way to the people around you. You're quite independent, perhaps to a fault. You are overcoming things that people would find difficult, such as sort of minor betrayals or hiccups or loss, really well. You're kind of dreaming about accomplishment in the future really well. Again, perhaps a little too much, but I can't really criticise you for that because big dreams is good. And because you don't need a big breakthrough, it's okay to return to the party and to let the control around that maybe go. And to kind of surrender the need to be like, oh, I can't have too many drinks because X, Y, Z, or I can't go here because really I should be prioritising all these things. If you've got this princely energy going on, again, masculine or feminine, just bloody enjoy it. It's great. It's a wonderful place to be in. And actually, don't tell the others, but of all the readings, you've come out in the most emotionally and physically satisfied place. And what I'm getting is that now is the time to just live it a bit. Not even just to enjoy and indulge, but to just allow yourself to go through the motions a little bit and see what comes up. Because you've been a fixer and you've been a problem solver, and maybe now it's time to receive a little. Okay? So I hope that was helpful. I hope it was specific enough as well. And if you like this, do subscribe, like, look for me on Fiverr, where I will be doing readings one-on-one very soon. I think next week is the official launch. And stay tuned.